Hey everybody, it's working. We're back. Happy Tuesday. I now got to reduce my audio. I got feedback here. Let me just get this. Let's just get this audio. Technology is getting better and better and better across the different platforms. And today, I think for the first time, we're actually live on um, Twitch. Didn't know we had a Twitch, but it's on my personal Twitch. So and then we're also live on LinkedIn. So welcome to all the LinkedIn listeners. I hope this is working on LinkedIn. We're testing this out. And we didn't have a Facebook page. So apparently now we can get it live on Facebook as well. So we'll try and get up on there. Yeah, look, really sorry I didn't give any real updates last week. It was crazy last week. Some of you may know I flew across to London, and in London we had a presentation to give a keynote. It was well in advance, but for me it was short notice. We just had to shift around between who was going to go from the team. Bank Santander hosted an event with about 150 inflation traders in the room. Yeah, it was packed. A lot of interested parties. It was really cool, and really glad I went. So yeah, it was a exciting event. Really good. And so, anyways, that's why couldn't make it. And so I'm going to give you a bit of an update of what I shared with them, so you get to see what we shared with them. A bit more, slightly different. So I'm not going to go into the exact presentation, because what we have now today installed for you is the inflation report that we give to our customers. So if you're a paying customer, you actually get reports before everybody else gets it. And so that's how we bring this to market, and get you up to speed on where we believe the government numbers are going to come out. Hopefully we have some time for Q&A. Would love to hear your comments, your thoughts. The best way to ping me is really via YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, please just go onto YouTube and quote me on there. Otherwise, the team is on standby, and then I get some of the comments from Twitter, in my Telegram, which is running on the side here, because we can't have 2 or 3 people logging into Twitter. And or you can ping me on my personal Twitter. I can see that, but I got so many screens going on over here, so it might just be easier if you comment on YouTube or some of the other channels. Anyway, hope you like this. We'll go into again our inflation prediction. And let me just share that with you. I'm going to try and keep it short, so not too long, maybe to 20 minutes. Maybe 30 minutes. You know me, I generally like to talk too much, which is a bit of a disadvantage. But yeah, let me share with you our inflation report. This is sort of what it looks like. This is what we update our institutional customers on. Let me get this onto slideshow so we can have a look at it. Yeah, so this is you get a quick summary here. A title is Confusion Yet Clarity. So let's go into it. So rate cuts, we know that's secured. In Jackson Hole, Jerome Powell talked about rate cuts. We believe that inflation, which comes out tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, is going to be at 2.6%. So we think that's the number that the government's going to be telling us. Markets predicting anywhere between 2.5 and 2.7. So we're bang in the middle, you could argue. Oliver's working and tuning that number a little more in terms of where we can. So you can see that they round down, round up. It makes a big difference last time, but we've been spot on the last 3 or 4 predictions. So our algos are working deep in the background. Either way, we're looking at a drop in the cost of goods, especially consumer price. The price of consumer goods. So they're coming down. Although remember, again, this is just this on year comparison. So all we're looking at is just this year compared to the same time last year. Or in the case of same month, member dashboard. Oh, that's something really weird. But let me show you. If you look, remember in aggregate, the Here, you can see here the US aggregate is 25%, right? You can see that right here. So just remember, this is what it's been like for the 3.5 years. So when you go to the restaurant, to the grocery store, to the gas station, and you see prices being a lot more expensive and not just 1.17% or 2.9%, as the government tells you, that's because the price is just compared to the same time last year. So just bear that in mind, and so I just want to reiterate that. That's really important to remember. We see a continued downward pressure, and we get on into slides later why, when, where we see that pressure coming from and why it's going down. Price, sort of largely due to the price of goods and non-core items, right? Rental prices are starting to drop. We're seeing those come down. That's helping. And then owned home prices are also coming down. But we think with dropping interest rates, those will go up again pretty quickly. And that's why we will say rise again, mon. Labor markets, uncertainty with mixed signals. So we'll get into the labor market. I think that's a big amount of data that came out there that is very murky and very hard to interpret what the hell's going on over there. Excuse my language. And then ultimately, we've come over the supply chain issues, right? We don't have those anymore. We figured it out. Oil prices have come down, and we've sort of gotten to terms with the geopolitical tension. So they're less sensitive than they used to be. And I think everybody's sort of just distracted with we were during the summer distracted by the Olympics. Now we're distracted by the elections. And we'll talk a bit about the elections as well, because they do matter to the economy, and I'll share with you why. But that's sort of our view in terms of the economy, and that's what we'll come into. The economy is still strong. So you can see here, it's still going upwards, 3% growth. I mean, for Q2, that's quite a machine that's humming there, right? Consumer spendings are still strong, right? We saw TJ Maxx, we saw our earnings reports from a lot of the retailers come out strong, so that's been looking pretty well. Consumer debt though is on the rise, right? So people are spending, and their savings are dropping, and credit card delinquencies are equally dropping because they're dipping into their savings. And so you can see on the graph up here where we sort of highlight the fact that you can see savings number is the purple line at the bottom, where it's dropping just ever so slightly below 5%. In fact, it's down below 3%. And then up here, we have personal spending and earnings. The disposable income is still above the spendings on average. So they're still growing. And consumer confidence still remains strong, right? So people are still believing that the economy in principle, based on the Michigan report and based on the Truflation's insights that we have when we troll social media, and especially if we troll multiple different social media channels. So if you just go over Twitter, it might be slightly more cautious, negative. And then if you go across to Facebook, Instagram, people are still posting positive things, positive aspects, and thoughts around the economy. And I think, the other one is the conference board, where we pull the data from, just so we actually sort of try. And then there's another survey of consumer expectations. So we have a number of different sources that we sort of aggregate the thought processes around consumer confidence from, but it's still strong, right? So 2 months in a row, pretty good outcome there. So what does that mean? I mentioned retail sales pretty strong, but unemployment is still pretty strong. So at 4.3%, dropped to 4.2%. They just came out with a number on Friday or yesterday. And so that was a bit of a shift, but downwards. But either way, we saw the non-farm employment data come in below at 880,000, right? So they had to revise that number. that was quite a surprise. I think most people were pretty surprised by that. That was not expected. Um, and I'll come to you. The reason why is, again, the way the BLS forecast employment numbers in the private sector, which sort of means non-farm, and it's sort of private and government. They know the government numbers because that's something that they can record. Generally, during the summer months, the government doesn't really hire anybody. You can see a clear dip in employment there. After the summer, it starts to pick up. Yeah, that's sort of what we see there. You can also get a feel for the numbers. Uh, the way they calculate that is they take into account the number of new businesses being created. They forecast what the anticipated growth of new business is. They take an average of number of new employees for new businesses created, and then that gives them their forecast, and that's how they predict. But what we're seeing here in these other two graphs, startups are shutting down. So a lot of startup, and that's growing, right? The number of startups that are coming down just broke past the 250 mark. So it's coming down pretty quickly. And yeah, so unfortunately there's not enough credit there. Cost of money is high, so ultimately no more startups getting funding or running out of funding, and as such they're having to lay off people. At the same time, you're seeing the same impact in small medium business category, and that's what this bottom graph highlights, is that SMB bankruptcy filings has been growing significantly. So businesses that have been around, have a lot of vendors, have tried to hustle their way through, hoping for that new credit from the banks, not coming through. Whoopsie daisy, I have to file for bankruptcy. Can I make salary payments? I will make salary payments, but then that's about it. And so really unfortunate that there, despite all these Inflation Reduction Acts and all these other opportunities, that a lot of companies can't shut down. There's a structural change that's happening in the economy. We see the top tech leads, AI companies doing phenomenally well, investing heavily. So if you're in the category of creating data centers for these AI companies, you're creating chipsets for AI companies. If you're in the data aggregation business, you're an AI company. So ultimately, they're all doing phenomenally well, right? And tech in general doing well, right? But any other business not really being supported. You know, we talk about onshoring, nearshoring. The manufacturing needs to move onshore. How do we bring the manufacturing onshore? We need to help the producers and the production of material and the manufacturing, enable them with robotics, give them subsidies, do R&D, and build that out. And so that's ultimately what we're going to need to do in order to drive growth again, and reduce the cost of setting up, reduce the bureaucracy needed to get approvals to set up a new business, to revise a factory, to reform, so that you're not spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars and thousands of dollars on getting approvals and getting licenses to improve your factory, to hire and implement robotics and automation in the production process. How do we do that? Anyway, I'm not going to talk about that too long, but yeah, that's a big issue, and something we as a community need to fix. But that just comes back to the labor market, right? We're talking about the non-farm employment go down, right? We're seeing employment actually grow up. Despite the revision, it's still going up. And then at the same time, we're also seeing unemployment go up. So both angles are going up. What does that mean? What is that telling us, right? So we're seeing an increase in immigration, and immigration taking on new jobs. And we feel that the market is having a transition to and bringing on, I know it's a bit a sensitive topic, but are we seeing, immigration and new immigrants getting employed and replacing existing employment? But these are legal immigrants. These aren't illegal immigrants, by the way, right? So these are registered immigrants, because ultimately they wouldn't fall into, and we wouldn't capture them in the statistics. So just bear that in mind. Is that meaning that the immigration are skilled workers that are registered and getting into new AI jobs or tech jobs or coding jobs or whatever they might be. And as a result, we're replacing manufacturing jobs, or which would sort of make sense given the growth in the tech industry needing, AI, the brain drain that's happening in Europe right now. Are they all going to the US? Are they being hired because they're data scientists, they're AI scientists, mathematicians, STEM environment, or are they coming from China and from India to help with the coding and the development and the further enhancement of some of these software companies and networking solutions to be able to help scale really big infrastructure projects? So who knows? But that's one thing that we're seeing and is sort of leading us to get that insight. Yeah, again, jobless claims are a bit better than expected, right? So slightly fewer claims than expected. And then you can see some other metrics there that we cover off. So what is driving the downward pressure and why are we seeing it come down? Food is coming down. Largely, sort of people are eating out. And as a result, there are more options. The cost of the raw materials have come down a bit. And people not going to necessarily the top restaurants. They're going to restaurants which they can afford. And also food at home is down also because of commodity prices. So the raw materials have come down. As we've seen, if you go to truflation.com, check out the commodities, you'll see them come down. Housing's come down. I talked about that a bit earlier, so I won't go into that again. Oil prices have equally come down, right? And so you can see all of this on Truflation. You can see, nope, whoa, I don't want to see. The strategic reserve is going up. So that's going up in order to fill up. But it doesn't seem that that we have air cons were being used, but you can see oil prices are coming down significantly, right? WTI, well, where is our oil prices? Anyway, not quite here yet, so I think it's coming. We're getting it all onto the TSN, which I'll come to in a little bit. We're launching our Truflation Stream Network, which is a dedicated app chain. I'll talk to you about that on Thursday when we announce that and launch that. But that's really exciting, something the team's been heavily busy on as well. But either way, gas prices have been coming down. And so ultimately that means that the cost associated with transportation, utility bills, when you're running your aircon in the hot summer, those then have come down slightly. And obviously driving around also has reduced that as well. Other things, utilities, slight increase here. There's a typo up there. These are requiring a bit of upward pressure versus downward pressure. So bear in mind that is a bit of so utilities are up a bit. Why? Because the demand for electricity has skyrocketed. We have AI demanding huge amounts of energy, a lot of air cons, and people applying and bidding auctions, as we talked about in the previous shows. Are bidding huge amounts for being a participant to be able to provide energy, number one. And those will get overlaid into the enterprise section, not necessarily the housing section, the retail market, but that's going to go up. We see housing go up. Just to put into context, right? So there was a study done about nuclear power plants, right? China's launching some 30 nuclear power plants. And the cost of a nuclear power plant to get one set up, I think, is in the $2 to $3 billion in order to set up the infrastructure, a nuclear power plant. And that's the same roughly in South Korea as well. So South Korea also building out technologies to launch that. So it's not just low cost, oh, China can afford to do it. No, it's also being done in South Korea. In the US, the equivalent is about $13 billion. So not 1x, not 2x, not 3x, but 4x to 5x the amount, right? Actually 6x, right? So if I said 2 to 12 or 13, you're looking at 6x more expensive to build a nuclear power plant in the US. Why? Because of the bureaucracy, the licensing, the approval rates, the time needed, and the all of that, right? And I think Elon Musk highlights it a lot. There's a $7 billion investment that's gone into a fast-moving rail track between LA and I'm not sure Las Vegas or San Francisco. You tell me, what is it? But if you look at that, $7 billion invested, nothing to show for it. No rails, no tracks, nothing to show, right? And so if there's nothing to show, what is waste of money? Is that taxpayers' money? Where's that money going? Why is that? And so you look at that, but energy is going to be super important. Number one for cars, number two for railroads, number three for AI. Either way, and AI is a nation race, so energy is really high, and I think that's going to be a real hot topic in the elections coming up, because you're seeing already now everybody's realizing the fact that we need to innovate again, and we need to innovate not just in the software sector where the US is leading anyway, but in hardware. Because over time, if you're building the hardware and the hardware is separated and it's designed in the US, you still need to be closer to the manufacturing, because over time, the intelligence is going to be tied to the hardware that you're coupling the software with, and you can rapidly turn around and tune your infrastructure to meet the appropriate requirements. So that's definitely something that is to be paid, pay attention to that. Household operations, so the goods in the house, right? So services in the house, so cleaning the house, but also your products in the house, right? So your gas, your oven, your laundry machines, right? Your what else do you have in an oven? That's big investment. Your furniture, your TV set. TV sets, I don't think are going up too much in price, but your infrastructure costs inside the house, right? So those are all important. And education, right? Education's up minor, but that's largely to the rise in teacher salaries in the public sector, not looking at private education, right? This is public education, which the large portion of the population are subscribing to. That said, we are, where do we see this going for the rest of the year? We see it actually picking up again towards the second half of the year. We know we're in an election year, so that's going to happen. Student debt, I mean, that's sort of repayments have to start again, so that's going to not be circulated in the money in the market, so that's going to take liquidity out of the market. But if we drop interest rates, that's going to bring more liquidity into the market. And if you listen to the show, we think it's about $480 billion in new liquidity coming into the market at 25 basis points drop. We see insurance going up, right? We already talked about it last time. Auto insurance, health insurance, those costs are going up. We talked about the interest rates. Logistical costs will go up. And so those will also, and then ultimately we have election year, and election year, it's super active, right? I mean, if we just look at all the activity that's been happening in the last couple of months alone, we had, the Republican convention, we had an assassination attempt, we had the Democratic convention, we had Biden pull out, we had Harris come in, or just and then just on and on. There's so much activity going on, and the race is going to be neck and neck for a while, even though all the prediction markets are telling us that it's looking likely that it's tight either way. And then you look at the polls, there weren't much polls over the last weekend, so let's see where this all ends up. But that's where we see a lot of this. And we did a post on Truflation. What does the reason why we bring up election data is and you can see that here, right? So we brought out a post, why election matters to the economy. This is a huge industry, right? Think about it. In the last 2020 election cycle, there was $30 billion spent on the election, just on the election. So PACs, sort of primaries, sort of promotions, advertising, messaging across all the different mediums, social media, mass media, conventions that you host. That's one side of the business. And what's not included in that 30 billion is transportation to and from these events, ticket prices for these events, hotel stays, restaurant stays, all throughout these. So these become major events that really also provide a boost to the economy in and around the event, right? You also see an increase in government spending to help the incumbents get strong, right? I don't know if you can see that. It's all a bit small, but the government spending grows, and you can see it has an impact of, because we're spending more and worrying less about the revenues, it has an impact of 0.4% on the GDP, right, in election years. You can also see the shift in spending composition. So we're less focused on long-term investments in infrastructure, instead short-term consumption. How do we drive consumption, get more to hotels, eat more, entertain more, etc., right? It does boost the GDP. It gives a quick dopamine hit to the GDP. So we do see growth, which is good, right? But there is a long-term consideration that we cannot neglect, right? The election is one thing. Then you come into office. Then you got to run the economy. You have to fix the economy. And whoever takes it on, we have $35 trillion in debt. We have a huge servicing of that debt. So not repaying the debt, it's just paying interest on the debt, which is up at the 1 trillion dollars. So how do we drive that? How do we change that? We need to address sustainability. And our view has always been entrepreneurship, innovation, and driving new kind of growth that we can help minimize the proportion of debt to growth. And how do we grow? We grow with AI. We grow with gene technology, biotech, cryptocurrencies and technologies, blockchain innovation, and just what else? Clean tech, right? All of this clean tech, space. We go to Mars. What other technologies? All of those are going to represent new opportunities and new roles in the economy that we need skills for, be it creating awareness for a product, social media marketing. A lot of these roles, influencer marketing, a lot of these roles, if you go back 5 years ago, didn't even exist. And today we have community managers. We have all of sorts of new roles that we didn't even have before. And there will be many more as we pursue this growth. And in order to drive that growth, we need to take away difficulties and challenges to actually create growth, especially bureaucratic challenges, because that's what's going to matter. The bureaucratic challenges become more of a hurdle than anything else. And so that's really what we need to build. And that's where we need to think beyond the election as well, right? Obviously, the election matters. Some people win at all costs. Others win for the benefit of the nation. And I think that's really where we're all trying to see more growth. And anybody in an entrepreneurial role knows how fucking hard it is as an entrepreneur to really scale a business, grow it, and figure out what is needed to be successful in a growth. So anyway, I got a sort of a bit of a happy note. I'm going to talk about is really a bit more funny. Somebody sent me a report, a thing again on LinkedIn. I think we're broadcasting on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, let me know. I can't see if we're on LinkedIn, but here you can see I'm just going to share something, and that was the end of the presentation. So yeah, so I'll share this tab instead. So that was the end of the deck. We just wanted to talk about how big the economy is and how it matters, and what is the inflationary impact of an election, and why everybody's talking about it. If you're in economics, you need to talk about it. And so that was the presentation that I wanted to share. And that's what we share customers. Not only do customers get that presentation, they get this in a nice written up form. So you get a bit of an executive summary. It's all narrated. So you can actually sit down and read it if you're on your phone, on the underground in the UK, or on your commute. Or you should have now got this on the podcast if you're driving through. And then we share with you some of the categories and how we see them shifting as well. So that's what you get if you're a subscriber and interested in that. But one thing I did want to share, right, talking about businesses and how hard it is as a startup again. I'm not complaining. I love it because it brings with it freedom. But we in the startup land have to do hard things, right? It's all really about hard things. And so how do we do these hard things? How do we struggle with it? And so here, somebody just sent me, steal my strategy document in 90 seconds. I haven't seen it, but I just got this in whilst we're podcasting. So I'm going to go through this with you. I hope we end on a high note, but I think it's something that just easily, quickly, in 5 slides or 5 minutes, allows you to summarize and give you focus, right? So a key thing about strategy is what you are going to do, but also what you are not going to do, especially earlier stage in a company, is really just to focus. But yeah, let me go through this with you. This is going to be the first time I see this as well. But can you see my screen? Yes, you can see it. Whoops, you just disappeared. You can see my screen. Let's go. Let's hit the play button. Play. See my parts. So you guys can't hear it, right? No sound. Oh man, how do I get this done? So anyway, I'll then narrate to it, right? So how we must change. So he's talking about, you got to imply how we change. So let's just go back a little bit. So you can see here, he talks about the background. Just give some context. What are you doing? How are you doing this? Why you're in it, and what is it that you're doing? Just quick synopsis, and how you got into it. Maybe strategy argument. What's the status quo today? Why this sucks as it is today, and what are you going to do that's going to be uniquely different, that gives you a 10x better opportunity that people want to go into. And then what are you going to do to have that 10x come out? What is it? And then, yeah, I can't read what the last thing is anyway. But that's sort of, in my view, sort of good enough. What does he talk about here? What you're going to do? And then result. What's the result out of that? I think he says. And then how we must change. Why, how is that change going to happen? We are the only one X. We offer Y, and we are doing Z. Anyway, if you can't hear the audio, there's no point. I won't play this for you because I just thought I'd do it on the fly, end on a bit of a high note. It's by this guy, Alex M.H. Smith. Check him out. If you haven't seen him already, maybe you'd be interested in this. If your business lacks clarity, this is the tool you need. Anyway, for all you entrepreneurs out there that are listening in, or even if you're just in a business and you need to put strategies together, you need to propose, you're getting new budget. This is always the way to look at and just quickly present things. And then what are the metrics you're going to use to track? So anyway, that was it for today. Hope you enjoyed that. Walked you through our Truflation report. So again, we're forecasting a 2.6 number. Market's thinking 2.5 to 2.7. So it's a broad range. We're right in the middle. So pretty safe, you could argue. But we've been spot on for the last 4 predictions. So let's hope we're right on this one. Yeah, hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you on Thursday, and we'll go into a bit more on Thursday. I'll take in some alpha, some news feeds, but then also what we'll do is highlight App Nation. What is our app chain? What does that look like? An application-specific blockchain, and love to share that with you. So, hope you enjoyed this. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Tuesday. And if you're watching the debate tonight, a lot of you might do that. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be entertaining. And if not, life goes on. All of us are still going to be working, trying to build a business. So let's just keep heads down, develop, build, and see you again on Thursday. Oh, by the way, how many of you are going to Singapore? There's Token 2049. Any of you going to Singapore? We'll be there. And so if any of you there would like to meet in person, look forward to that. So we're going to be speaking at a number of events, the Stable Summit, which talks about flat coins. We are going to speak in an RWA, reinventing RWA. And what is reinventing RWA? It really talks about synthetic assets and what are synthetic assets. Because ultimately we want to bring to the digital realm the ability to work with synthetic assets. And that matters, right? Because we don't want to be waiting for 50,000 approvals, going through the whole bureaucratic process in order to innovate. The whole thing about movement is move fast, break things, and fix them really fast, even faster, right? So we just really need to move fast. That's the competitive advantage. We need to get distribution before the incumbents get innovation. So that's up to us. And in order to do that, we're nimble, we're fast, have to find product market fit, and then get that out there. So hope you enjoyed this. Thank you, everybody, and see you soon.